Hello and welcome to Makers of All, Master of None, and today we'll be tackling my first woodworking project. Here we have a beautiful puzzle on a very clustered coffee table, which is in need of some repair and upgrade. But to get to the coffee table, I first need to make a frame so that the puzzle can be hung somewhere else. And the reason why I can't just buy a puzzle frame is that because it has an unusual size. It measures 73 cm by 45 cm, and the most common puzzle frames are 75 by 50, which would be too big and make it difficult to frame and center. So with newly acquired tools, I thought, why not? I'll go make a puzzle frame. It is one of the typical starting projects that a woodworker would make. And because it is one of my first woodworking projects, this puzzle frame is full of mistakes, so this is more of a don't do what I did video rather than oh look at my cool thing I made video. So I opened up Autodesk Fusion 360 and started to cut up what I wanted to do. And this is where I make my first two mistakes. Because you see, instead of designing the frame first, I went to the hardware store to pick up some other stuff, and in the process also picked up some pine strip wood, which was too small, meaning that I can't just do a conventional frame construction where the frame encompasses the protective plastic layer, puzzle and backboard. And the second mistake was picking pine instead of oak at the store because it was cheaper. If you're not aware, pine is a type of softwood, and the structure of the cells makes the wood less durable, less strong, so it's more susceptible to minor damages such as dents and scratches. The design I came up with was to have two short edges and two long edges, both having a cutout to allow the backboard, which is 3mm hardboard, and the puzzle, which is about 2mm thick, to sit inside the frame. And to stop the puzzles from falling off, the entire frame is covered by an acrylic sheet, which on the 3D model is helpfully put on the other side for some reason. The third and fourth mistake I made was regarding the construction. To join the edges together, I could have used a lap joint, a mortise and tenon, a bridle joint, or any other joint, but for some reason I used a mitre butt joint with no reinforcements. I could have added some spline, but for some reason I didn't, probably because I don't have any contrasting wood to put in there. The fourth mistake was how the acrylic sheet goes over the frame. For artistic reasons, I decided to use thumb screws and place them on the corner of the acrylic. Because as I said before, the frame was constructed of mitre butt joints, that is also where the wood is going to be glued together. So I'm just going to split the wood even further by having metal threaded inserts into it. But those two mistakes were hindsights. So I printed out the drawings of the pieces that I need made, and then set to use my speed square and ruler to mark out on the hardboard and strip wood where I need to cut. The cat's lending a helping hand, and this is where I made my fifth and sixth mistake. You see, I didn't notice when I was buying the strip wood at the store that they were not actually straight, they were curved, which means that there are some inaccuracies when I'm measuring out the pieces. The sixth mistake was more of a my fault thing because I didn't read the measurements properly and I didn't have the measurements correct. But I'll show you that later. Milo, you stinky! I brought the wood outside and started to do the cutting. And remember mistake 5 where I said the strip wasn't straight? This causes lots of problems, because I actually have no idea how I'm going to cut that slot out. Now, my initial idea was to use a router, and because I don't have a router, I have a rotary tool from Works, Maker X series. I tried to get some router bits that fit, and tried to route it. But it made a terrifying noise, and I didn't like it. I also don't know how to deal with the router attachment on the rotary tool. That is terrifying. What I ended up doing was to run the circular saw down a certain depth, run it across, and then flip the wood 90 degrees and run the circular saw again. Now, because this is strip wood, it is very thin, and the edge guider on the circular saw doesn't support that thickness, so I have to tape 2 of those together to run through it. Now there's a couple of problems with that. One is that the clamp will get in the way, so I have to do half of it and then continue doing the other half. The second thing is, as I'm cutting through the strip, the tape is going to break apart because I'm cutting through the tape. This might mean that the width I'm cutting throughout the strip might not be consistent, and that's going to be a problem later. You might also saw me dipping my circular saw towards the end of the cut, and that's going to mean that the cut is not going to be uniform all the way across, and we're going to get deeper and shallower grooves along the cut. I went back and correct that by running the circular saw the other way around by adjusting the width. And that is mistake 7. Once I've done it on 2 sides of the strip wood, I now have my edge profile ready, and I just need to cut the 45-degree angles to make the micro butt joints. As you can see, this method kind of works. The first piece didn't go as well as planned, but the second piece looks okay. So I attempted some tidy up, first with a circular saw, trying to even out the grooves on that first piece. Which may or may not have made it worse, judging by how that went. I then did the best that I can trying to clean that up by running a chisel through, removing any excess wood, as well as using an orbital sander. Once all 4 of the edge pieces are done, I can then proceed to the glue up phase. As I said before, I decided to go for a mitre butt joint, which just means they are 2 wooden surfaces glued together. And mistake number 8 was that I sanded the pieces beforehand. And it is bad because sanding the pieces is going to make the surface less even compared to a cut from a blade. Now, because the strip wood went straight to start off with, and I also sanded the faces where they're going to be glued, I'm having trouble trying to align the pieces for a neat glue up. So using some trick I saw from some random videos, using tape to hold them all together, and that would be mistake number 9, not using enough clamps and corner clamps to secure the pieces. I was contemplating when I was doing that to get my ratchet strap and strap around it so I get a more even force around, but I couldn't find my ratchet strap, so that didn't go to plan. I also added some extra clamps on the corners to make sure that they go flat, but that didn't work out. At this point, I also noticed there were some big gaps between the joints, so I took some of the sawdust from the table and then used that to try and fill the gap with the wood glue, using the clamp to try and secure those in. So once that was dried, I need to cut out the backboard. Well, that went terribly. Second time's a charm, maybe? Now it's time to cut the acrylic sheet, and that is mistake number 10. If you're trying to cut acrylic sheets on a circular saw, you need to buy a new blade with higher tooth counts. As I was trying to cut it with what I already have, I was getting hit by bits of plastic, and that wasn't fun. I was also going too slow on my circular saw, and that melts the surrounding plastic, meaning I can't cut a straight line. I also tried other tools in my arsenal, such as a jigsaw, and that proved no better. So unfortunately, we're going to have to get a new saw blade.
Later that same evening.
Oh no. Oh no. No. 60. Okay, so luckily is just the backboard, which isn't too bad. A couple ways I can do this. I can either cut across here or diagonal, add a 2mm strip, cut in the middle, add a 2mm strip, or just add the top and bottom. I don't think I have enough material for another backboard. Measure one, cut twice. Measure twice, cut once.
The next morning.
So let's have a look and see how the work went. So it's not looking great. So there's a bit of a step on this end. On the flip side there's more of a gap, which this is actually the front face. So we're going to fill that quite a bit. There's also, because of the way the slots were cut, it's obviously not great. So what I think I'm going to do is to Dremel that flat, and also I try drizzling as much as I can along the edge, but there's only so much I can do. And the final one, again, I think it's similar to how other ones looked, bit of an uneven edge. This one's flatter on this side, which is good. On the other side, you can see why it's flatter. There's a bit of a edge there. But all in all, it is looking like it's going to fall apart. So good luck to us. I'll get some wood filler, try and put as much back to there as we can. But because I don't have it, and I also need to order the saw blade, this project is going to wait for another couple of days, unfortunately. Just doing a bit of a test fit. I think because the edges aren't rounded properly, it just slides along, but the general shape, I think it's there. You can see how bow the wood actually is from that. And if you press that down, that probably would fit. So, more work to be done. And we'll see how it goes. So this gap problem we have at corners is actually very important, and to solve that I have a cunning plan. Oops. And there. Fine. Or maybe a stupid plan, I don't know. What I'm going to do is I'm going to use a plane to shave off very thin slices of wood from the offcuts that we have from the strip wood. And what I'm going to do is to shove those right into the gap. Because they're roughly the right profile, it saves me a bit of time at the end going in to reshape it. Right, it's been drying for a day or so. Have a look. The gap has definitely been decreased, I think. Finish off that with wood filler mostly. I also use some wood filler, so hopefully that fills in a bit more of the gap. I think only time will tell whether this actually worked or not, but for now it's holding the puzzle together and it seems to be filling the cracks.
2 weeks later.
So I had to park the project for about 2 weeks because I was preparing for a performance, which you can see the piano pieces I was doing in a few other videos linked here. Mostly coming back here is just to finish off what we have started and to do some cleanup. The first thing that we have to do is to fill that gap for the backboard so that the puzzle can actually fit onto it and not have pieces fall out of it. I doubly made sure that I had the right width of the backboard this time, so measuring it 3 times before I do a single cut. Teddy doesn't like being left in the house while I'm outside, so he's tried to escape a few times and I have to stop him a few times. I also got this hilarious video of him pawing at the door trying to get out through the glass door. I used a chisel to clear up the corner so that I can test fit the pieces, and when that was done, I just used some tape to secure the 2 back pieces together. The second thing we have to do is to cut the acrylic sheet. Now we have our new saw blade here, which has 60 teeth instead of 24 teeth, so hopefully we can make good progress out of cutting this and not have a messy cut. And it does work surprisingly well, even though the first attempt I ran out of battery on my circular saw. But afterwards, it did manage to give us some straight cuts, and I was very happy with that. Once I did my initial test cut, I then halved the length of acrylic sheet I have, so I don't have to use stacked toolboxes as support for the rest of my acrylic sheet. And the rest of the cut went fairly straightforward. The only thing that was annoying was the amount of plastic dust it sent out, and I have to bust out the vacuum to clean in between the cuts. Another slightly annoying thing is that my ruler isn't flush when I'm clamping it to the table because it's not long enough, short enough, or something. What I should have done was have the cut pieces I already had to act as a stand so that the ruler is straight, but I don't think it mattered too much. After cutting the 4 sides, I did a bit of a test fit, and it was mostly satisfactory, so I did some sanding around the edges to try and flush them, but it didn't really go that well on that account, because I guess I didn't want to inhale the amount of plastic and sawdust that were just coming towards me. I did get a mask later, so you will see me wearing that when I was doing more sanding. Once I'm mostly happy with how the 2 pieces aligned, I marked out the places where I'm going to put the thumb screws and threaded inserts in and use a drill to drill the holes. Did a bit of a test on a piece of scrap wood on the threaded insert, which unsurprisingly works, so I put the threaded inserts into the corner holes where I just drilled, and also test assembled the entire thing. After a bit of testing, I realized that just using 4 isn't quite good enough because there's quite a big gap in the middle which the puzzle can fall out, so I added 2 more in the center. I then ended that day's of work using some wood filler, as I mentioned before, because the threaded insert is going to split the wood out. That's what I'm going to have to do. And really, that's all that's left of the project, is just repeatedly wood filling, sanding, test fitting, making sure that it fits. And once that it does fit, I then applied a couple of layers of varnish. I didn't use the right varnish, I used outdoor furniture varnish, I believe. Which is probably not great, but it does make the grain pop, and it is just going to be indoors, so it doesn't really matter. So let's have a look at the final results. Obviously I've made a lot of mistakes making this frame, but I have learnt so much from this. A little bit of joinery goes a long way, making sure that you measure before you cut, making sure you have the right tools for the job, making sure that you have the right materials for the job. I do find woodworking to be satisfying, so I think I will continue doing woodworking with more projects on the way. I do have a couple of ideas of what I want to make, and with this project it's probably going to sit somewhere but not being hung, because I don't really trust that miter joint. And also because I don't have any screws that would fit the thickness of the wood to match the hanging hardware. I might come back to it and redo the frame, but at the moment, this is what it is. I hope you enjoyed this video and you don't make the same mistake as I did. Making these type of videos is always really long and very time consuming, but I do enjoy making them and I hope you enjoy watching them. Check out my other videos if they interest you, and I'll see you on the next time of Makers of War, Master of None. Bye!